Envious sister-in-law tried to poison me at my husband's party after we announced my pregnancy. Jenna tried to poison me at my husband VJRTM's party after we announced my pregnancy, but it backfired horribly, and now Chev DJ or TM's facing jail time while also getting divorced. IVDJ TM M, 29, and have been married to my husband Sam for the past 7 years. I love everything about our marriage except the fact he VJTM's related to his sister, Lisa, who brings all the negativity into our lives. Now, Don DJTMT, get me wrong. I used to love Lisa when I first got to know her, but over time, I quickly changed my opinion. Chev DTM's incredibly negative, manipulative, and toxic. I've worked hard for years to avoid getting on her bad side because I know the kind of person she is. In the past, my husband dated Lisa DJTM's best friend when he was 17, and later they broke up because he felt pressured into being with her because of Lisa. When he turned 23 and found himself single, his sister insisted that he and her other friend should be together, but he refused. They had a huge fight, and she went crying to their parents about how she wanted him to marry someone she felt comfortable with. But his parents didn't really listen to her. When my husband and I met and fell in love, his parents were very supportive, but Lisa consistently treated me with a cold demeanor whenever I was around. She would always bring up Sam VDJTM's exes for no reason and tell him how well they were doing and how he should get back in touch with them. This went on for a while, and I wasn't VJTM the only one who found this weird, as Sam found this weird also. So he would ask her to not bring up his exes continuously. Lisa would then get pissed and start taunting me about how I was getting jealous and how he should not be with an insecure person like me. Whenever his parents would call us for dinner, Lisa would purposefully bring one of Sam VDJTM's exes, telling us how she had stumbled into them that day by accident and had to invite them for dinner out of politeness. She also checks my Instagram relentlessly, even though she doesn't VJTMTT follow me. I have a public account, so I have noticed how she is the first person to check my story. If a guy comments on my photo, she would then go to her brother and complain about how I was posting inappropriate pictures of myself. Sam and I would literally laugh at her accusations. When Sam and I decided to move in together, she urged Sam to break up with me, telling him how I have a lot of flaws as a woman and that she could find someone much better than me. This comment honestly hurt me, since I had been nothing but nice to her throughout everything. Unfortunately, as soon as Sam and I got engaged, Lisa's behavior got even worse. When Sam and I announced our engagement, everyone started congratulating us. I noticed Lisa was very quiet, and then she got up from the chair and walked out of our party, to everyone VJTM's shock. Later, she called Sam crying and screaming about how she didn't VJTM appreciate being told the news with everyone else, since she thought he was the closest to her. So she deserved to have been the first one to know about his engagement. Later, she sent me a message which was almost borderline threatening, saying how I should be a good wife to her brother since she had always been the only woman in his life. The message was so weird that I almost cringed. I didn't VJTM to even bother replying back to her and left her message on scene, which I know must have pissed her off even more. Lisa started to gradually ignore me anytime she saw me. For some reason, she remained involved with all the wedding activities, like when I went dress shopping and had my bridal shower. She took her criticism of the wedding to a whole new level, openly expressing her discontent with my choices. Despite both my future mother-in-law and Sam calling her out on it multiple times, her behavior persisted. One day, while discussing the centerpiece with my future mother-in-law, Lisa overheard and immediately began to mock me, saying how my choice had no class and how this is why she wanted her brother to marry someone better. That was the breaking point for me, and I lost my composure. I screamed at her that I couldn't VDTM tolerate her constant taunts and criticisms any longer, and I made it clear to her that she was not invited to our wedding anymore. Lisa was shocked, gasping in disbelief, as if she had never expected me to stand up to her. Even my mother-in-law was furious with her and supported me. Later, Lisa reached out to Sam, complaining about how I embarrassed her, and insisting that he should control me since I was going to be his wife. Sam told her firmly that he stood by my decision and that if she didn't attempt to apologize, she was not going to be invited to the wedding. Begrudgingly, she sent me a heartfelt apology, which I saw and again left on read. With my wedding preparations, I was already exhausted and didn't want to be involved with her drama. In the end, she did end up coming to our wedding because I didn't want her to badmouth us later. Now my wedding had a certain theme of pink hues and pastels, which everyone seemed to have no trouble following, including the guests. However, Lisa showed up wearing a black floor-length gown with a veil, as if she was coming for a funeral. We were shocked, to say the least. Lisa went around telling everyone how she was mourning for losing her brother to another woman. During the reception, my husband could see that I was uncomfortable with Lisa JTM's wedding outfit and confronted her about it. She tried to play the victim by saying that she had the right to wear whatever she wanted and that I was too controlling. In the end, my mother-in-law and father-in-law asked her to leave when she wouldn't stop making a scene. It was humiliating for me, and ever since that day, I have steered clear of her. When I gave birth to my son, Jake, I refused to allow Lisa anywhere near our baby. She did try to fight it, but my husband and his parents had my back. They understood exactly why I didn't want Lisa near my baby and respected my decision. 2 years ago, Lisa had a miscarriage with her then-boyfriend Mark, and it completely broke her. It was indeed a sad time for everyone. Sam and I felt sad for her since we already had a child, so after her miscarriage we decided to be a bit more forgiving. We would invite her to our place so she could bond with our son Jake. I have to say that she has been surprisingly sweet to our son despite how she behaves with me. In the beginning, she seemed to have changed, but over time, she had gone right back to who she was before. TMS always going on about how tough her life is, how things never seem to work out for her, blaming ex-bosses or ex-friends for messing things up in her life. Over time, I have noticed that in her head, she is never wrong. She rarely admits to any fault in conflicts, and is constantly trying to get people on her side by playing the victim card. This year, she decided to get married and invited everyone except us. Sam was shocked to find out that we were not invited since our relationship seemed to be better. When we questioned her about it, she started to say how she could not allow me to come since I might do something to upstage her wedding. I did call and ask her why she would think something like that when I have never done anything to her. Lisa started to say how she had knowingly dressed up in all black to our wedding, so now she was afraid that I might do the same, and this is why she didn't want me at her wedding. I was furious about how manipulative she was, and straight up told my husband about this. Sam talked with his parents, and they decided to tell Lisa that they would neither pay for the wedding, nor would they be attending. This reduced Lisa to tears, and she started to blame me for creating this fiasco. My husband informed her that she had shamelessly admitted her own mistake, so she had no right to be pointing fingers at me. But Lisa justified her action, saying that our wedding happened a long time ago and that I should just get over it. Later, since my father-in-law and mother-in-law were still refusing to pay for her wedding, she reached out to apologize to me and beg for forgiveness. I hate to admit this, but Lisa can be very sweet and persuasive when she wants something. I forgave her and wanted to just move on from the past. Her wedding with Mark went well. We all attended and had a good time. Not even 6 months later, Lisa was at our doorstep complaining about how her marriage was falling apart. Sam and I let her stay with us for a few days where she would vent for hours on end about her husband. They seemed to be having issues with getting pregnant, and Lisa was clearly blaming Mark for everything. I tried to talk to Lisa, but she was adamant that it was all her husband VJTM's fault. When she was VJTMT complaining about her husband, she would be hyper-focused on our lives and try to make up things that didn't VJTMT exist. For example, I generally go to the gym every morning before going to work. Sometimes when I'm running late, I take my work clothes so I can finish my workout, take a bath, and change into my work attire. Lisa noticed this for some time and would ask me a lot of questions about it, like why was I taking a bath or why I even needed to go to the gym. I didn't think much about it, and would tell her how I liked maintaining my weight and how I didn't like going to the office all sweaty. She would purse her lips and nod. Eventually, things got okay with Mark, and she went back to living with him. One weekend, my husband and I went to have lunch with my in-laws. Lisa and Mark had also been invited. We left our son Jake with a babysitter since he usually got bored when us grown-ups would talk for long hours and wanted to stay at home and play. During lunch, my mother-in-law was telling us about how one of her friends is currently divorced. She was telling us about how her friend VJTM's husband cheated on her, so she left him and took half of his assets. Lisa suddenly interrupted her to ask my husband if he and I had signed a prenup before we got married. We stopped eating to look at her. She acted like I wasn't VJTM even there, and looked at my husband expectantly. Now, my husband is not someone who minces his words, so he told her straight up that since he and I both earned quite well, we saw no reason to get a prenup. Lisa snorted and started to say how nowadays there are a lot of cheaters around us, and that he could be blindsided any day. I took offense to her words and asked her to tell us what exactly she was insinuating. Lisa then started to say how I was definitely meeting up with someone, since I was always carrying a change of clothes everywhere, and that as Harry VGTM's sister, it was her duty to warn her brother. I was shocked to hear these words. My father-in-law and mother-in-law immediately came to the rescue and went off on her to stop making up such things, and that she should not meddle her nose into others' VGATM business. Lisa, without missing a beat, went on to say how she was only trying to be there for her brother, and started to joke if our son Jake was really Sam VDJTM's son, since he didn't VJTM exactly look like him. I swear I watched my husband VDJTM's face go red in anger. I have never seen him this angry in my life. He looked Lisa straight in the eye and told her that this was why she was not a mother yet, since she didn't VJTM deserve to be one, and that her child was better off in heaven rather than with someone like her. Lisa VJTM's mouth hung in shock. My father-in-law and mother-in-law just stared quietly as my husband went off on Lisa about how she was a shameless person who tried to ruin everything because she had nothing good going on in her life, and how she was just a loser married woman who did nothing the whole day while her husband worked hard. He continued to say that instead of pointing fingers at me and asking us about prenups, she should worry about her own marriage since she was clearly projecting. Lisa was reduced to tears and started bawling. She looked at Mark, who was sitting right next to her, to support her, but he never uttered a word. I have never seen my husband lose his mind this way. In the end, she got up from her chair to run into the washroom. My husband was fuming. My mother-in-law came over to calm my husband down as I rubbed his hand. He told me how sorry he was for what his sister told me about our son, and I nodded, because I understood just how frustrating she could be. I was kind of glad my husband stood up for me so publicly, since I had taken enough from Lisa over the years. After he calmed down, he apologized to Mark, but ignored Lisa completely. After lunch that day, we went back to no contact with Lisa. Her behavior was not only affecting me, but it was also affecting my husband. We just blocked her from everywhere so she could not reach out to us. My father-in-law and mother-in-law did talk to us about the lunch and agreed that Lisa had gone too far this time. They could see how their usually calm son had gone unhinged after Lisa had kept pushing him. It has been a year now since we have talked with her, and everything has been going smoothly. 2 months ago, I found out that I was pregnant. This is a complete surprise since we were not even trying. My husband and I feel blessed to welcome another family member. We were waiting for the right time to inform everyone and decided to reveal it on my husband VDJTM's birthday. My father-in-law and mother-in-law wanted to celebrate Sam, so they were having a big bash for him in their backyard. Our close family and friends had been invited. Lisa must have heard about this from others and decided to show her face. My husband and I were shocked to see her. Lisa came and hugged Sam, telling him how much she had missed him and how sorry she was for their last conversation. My husband took my hand and told his sister that she should be apologizing to me since she had pointed fingers at my character. Lisa nodded, turned to me, and apologized. She told me how she had been going to therapy for the past few months and had realized how wrong it was for her to humiliate me like that. I did not believe a word she was saying, but I didn't want to be rude to her in front of everyone, so I just nodded. My father-in-law and mother-in-law did check up on us and told us that they had no idea she would be coming, and assured us that if we were not comfortable, they would kick her out since this was a party for my husband. But Sam didn't want to make a scene, so we agreed to let this go. Throughout the party, I could see Lisa laughing and mingling with everyone, which was a bit odd. She seemed too positive, which was completely not her character. But she had mentioned going to therapy, so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. When it came time to cut the cake, Sam gave a heartwarming speech about how he considered himself the luckiest guy in the world, grateful for yet another year with a wife like me. His words made me blush with joy. I couldn't help but appreciate the fact that my husband and I were still deeply in love, just as we were when we first started dating all those years ago. Then Sam and I decided to share some exciting news with everyone. With smiles on our faces, we announced that we were expecting a baby, and everyone took a moment to process before exclaiming in happiness. My mother started to cry and came over to hug me, and my father-in-law had tears running down his face as they congratulated both me and Sam. Everyone was so happy for us, and were excitedly asking us if we come up with baby names. The only sore thumb that stuck out was Lisa. She looked stunned. I thought maybe she was taking some time to process, but then her expressions changed, and she just walked away from us looking pissed. I was a bit worried, thinking if she was going to ruin yet another celebration for us, but got distracted with other people coming over to talk to me. When it was time to serve lunch, I got up to help my in-laws bring the food out, but Sam and my parents urged me to remain seated, telling me that I should not even lift a finger during this time. I was sitting in my seat, patiently waiting for my husband to bring me a plate when Lisa came up to me beaming. She had a plate of food in her hands and handed it to me, loudly announcing that she personally wanted to serve me food since she was so happy about my pregnancy. As she handed me the plate, she even made a comment about how she wanted to make it up to me for all the time she had been rude to me in the past. I nodded and graciously accepted. She then walked away. As I was about to dig in, I thankfully noticed that she had brought shrimp on my plate. It is quite a well-known fact to my family that I am highly allergic to shrimp, so I was shocked that Lisa even served me this. I shook my head in disappointment and got up to get my own food. At that moment, Mark came over to congratulate me on my pregnancy. We talked a bit and he asked me why I was not eating. I pointed out how Lisa had served me shrimp, probably by mistake, so Mark told me not to worry and took the plate off my hands. He told me he could have this plate since he liked eating shrimp, and I could get a new plate for myself. I smiled, nodded, and walked away. It was not even 5 minutes later when Mark started to puke and retch over this plate. Everyone stopped eating in concern and stared at him as he stumbled to get up from his seat. Sam and Lisa rushed towards him in concern. Mark pointed at his plate and then at his throat. Our eyes widened in shock as we understood that something was clearly wrong with him because of what he had eaten. Mark then fainted, while everyone gasped in shock and concern. Lisa rushed over to check his plate, and her eyes widened in shock. She turned to look at me and asked me if I had given my plate to her husband, and I nodded. In the midst of the chaos, someone called for an ambulance, and he was rushed to the hospital. Lisa was crying uncontrollably through all this, and kept glancing at me in anger. We were informed later that Mark had been poisoned. I almost fainted when I heard this, since I knew, unlike others, that the plate was originally meant for me. Whatever poison Mark ate could have poisoned me and my baby. Sam, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and my parents have no idea about this yet. The police were called to take the food that he ate as evidence, since no one had any idea what was in the food that had caused him to faint this way. At this moment, as I am typing this, Mark is still recovering at the hospital while Lisa stayed with him overnight. My husband and I have been answering calls from relatives inquiring about what happened to Mark and who could have potentially poisoned him. My father-in-law and mother-in-law are shaken up by what has happened and are staying over at our place since they are afraid to be back at their place. No one has any idea about what happened suddenly when everything was going so well. I am so scared to tell everyone that the plate originally belonged to me and how Lisa had come and served it to me. If this turns into an investigation, I will have to tell the police the truth. I feel extremely guilty about what has happened, but most importantly, I am now extremely worried about what my sister-in-law can do to me, since she clearly has no inhibitions about trying to poison me. I don't VJTMT want to be around her, nor can I let my children anywhere near her. One evening, about 2 weeks after the trial, Sam and I were sitting on the porch watching the sunset. I turned to him and said, "You know, Sam, it still amazes me how far we've come. Despite everything, we're still standing strong." Sam smiled, squeezing my hand. "Yeah, Lisa, we've been through hell and back, but we didn't let it break us. If anything, it made us stronger." I nodded, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I'm just grateful for our family and friends who stood by us, and for our 2 beautiful kids. They remind me every day why we fought so hard. Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of our son's laughter. Nate came running out onto the porch, followed closely by our daughter, Emily, who was toddling behind him. Seeing them play together brought a warmth to my heart that was indescribable. "Daddy, Mommy, look, I taught Emily how to say brother," Nate exclaimed proudly. Emily looked up at us, her big eyes sparkling, and said, Bro. Sam and I laughed, clapping for her. "Good job, Emily," I said, picking her up and giving her a kiss on the cheek. Life was getting back to normal, or at least our new version of normal. The shadows of the past were still there, but they were no longer looming over us, threatening to take away our happiness. A few days later, Sam and I decided it was time to have a family meeting. We wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page and to discuss any lingering concerns. We invited my parents, Sam's parents, and Jamie over for dinner. After dinner, we all sat down in the living room. I took a deep breath and started the conversation. "We wanted to thank all of you for your support over these past months. It's been a tough journey, but your love and support have meant the world to us." My mom smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "We're family, Lisa. We'll always be here for you." Sam nodded. We also wanted to discuss a few things moving forward. As you all know, trust has been a big issue for us. We want to rebuild that trust, not just with each other, but within our entire family. Jamie spoke up, his voice steady. "I want to thank you both for including me in your family. Despite everything that happened, I feel lucky to have you all in my life. And I'm committed to making things right." Sam's dad, who had been quiet until now, cleared his throat. "Son, Lisa, you've handled this with more grace and strength than I could have ever imagined. We're proud of you both. And Jamie, we're here for you too." It was a healing moment for all of us. We talked late into the night, sharing our feelings, our hopes, and our plans for the future. By the end of the evening, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Over the next few months, life began to settle into a comfortable routine. Sam and I continued to work on our relationship, taking time to go on dates and spend quality time together. We also made sure to have regular family gatherings, strengthening our bonds with our parents and with Jamie. One afternoon, while I was in the kitchen preparing lunch, Sam walked in with a thoughtful expression on his face. "What's on your mind?" I asked, looking up from the salad I was making. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "about everything we've been through, about how we want to move forward. And I realized something." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "Oh? And what's that?" "We've been through so much, Lisa, but we came out stronger. And I think it's time we do something positive with our experience." I set down the knife I was holding and turned to face him fully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we can help others who are going through similar situations. We could start a support group or even write about our experiences. Something to turn all this pain into something meaningful." I was taken aback by his suggestion, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. "You know, that's not a bad idea, Sam. We've learned so much, and if our story can help even one person, it would be worth it." And so, we began to plan. We reached out to local community centers and started a support group for couples and families dealing with betrayal and trust issues. We shared our story, listened to others, and offered support and advice. It wasn't always easy, but it was incredibly rewarding. Seeing the impact we could have on others' lives brought a new sense of purpose to our own journey. In the end, we learned that no matter how dark the past, there's always a way to find light. It's about choosing to heal, to forgive, and to move forward with love and strength. And that VVDD tritems exactly what we did. Our family, our love, and our resilience were stronger than ever. We had turned our pain into a source of strength, and that made all the difference. As the months turned into years, Sam and I continued our journey of healing and growth. Our support group thrived, and we found ourselves becoming a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. Our story of resilience resonated with many, and it was incredibly fulfilling to see others finding strength and solace in our experiences. One day, we received an invitation to speak at a local conference on family dynamics and overcoming adversity. The event was organized by a nonprofit dedicated to supporting families in crisis. They had heard about our support group and wanted us to share our journey with a larger audience. When we received the invitation, I was initially hesitant. Public speaking had never been my strong suit, and the thought of standing in front of a large crowd made me nervous. But Sam, ever the optimist, encouraged me. "This is our chance to make an even bigger impact, Lisa," he said, his eyes full of excitement. "We've helped so many people in our group. Imagine how many more we could reach at this conference." Taking a deep breath, I nodded. "You're right. Let's do it." The day of the conference arrived, and as we stood backstage waiting for our turn to speak, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Sam squeezed my hand, giving me a reassuring smile. "We've got this," he whispered. "Just speak from the heart." When we stepped onto the stage, the applause was overwhelming. Looking out at the sea of faces, I felt a surge of confidence. Sam and I took turns sharing our story, talking about the challenges we faced and the lessons we learned. We spoke about the importance of communication, trust, and forgiveness, and we emphasized the power of love and resilience. By the time we finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The applause was thunderous, and as we walked off the stage, several people approached us, thanking us for sharing our story and offering words of encouragement. That night, as we sat in our hotel room, Sam and I reflected on the experience. "I never imagined we'd be doing something like this," I said, leaning against him. "But it feels good. It feels right." Sam nodded, wrapping his arm around me. "It does, and I think this is just the beginning." Our journey continued, and we found ourselves speaking at more events, writing articles, and even starting a blog to reach a wider audience. Our message was simple. No matter how dark the storm, there is always a way to find the light. Back at home, our lives were filled with the joy and chaos of raising our 2 kids. Nate was thriving in school and had developed a passion for soccer, while Emily was growing into a curious and spirited little girl. Watching them grow and bond as siblings brought us immense joy. One evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Sam and I sat on the porch, reminiscing about the past and dreaming about the future. "Do you ever think about what life would be like if things had been different?" Sam asked, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I don't dwell on it. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "We've built something beautiful out of the ashes, and I think that's something to be proud of." As the years went by, our family continued to grow, not just in size, but in strength and love. We faced new challenges and celebrated new milestones, always with the knowledge that we had each other's backs. One particular challenge came when Nate, now a teenager, started asking questions about our past. He had overheard bits and pieces of our story and wanted to understand what had happened. Sitting him down one evening, Sam and I decided it was time to be honest with him. We shared our journey, the struggles we faced, and the importance of forgiveness and resilience. Nate listened intently, absorbing every word. "I had no idea you went through so much," he said quietly, "but I'm glad you did. It's made us who we are." Emily, still too young to fully understand, would one day hear our story too. But for now, we focused on creating a loving and supportive environment for both our children. Our story became a cornerstone of our family legacy, a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and resilience. It wasn't always easy, And there were times when the memories of betrayal and hurt resurfaced. But we faced them together, always choosing to move forward. Years later, as we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, surrounded by friends and family, I looked at Sam and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Our journey had been anything but easy, but it had shaped us into who we were. Standing together, hand in hand, we made a toast to our past, our present, and the future that lay ahead. We had turned our pain into strength, our struggles into triumphs, and our love into an unbreakable bond. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.